Vladimir Putin is telling Donald Trump to go screw yourself. He's sending this message through Konstantin Malefev, a Russian tycoon who's very close to Vladimir Putin. And specifically, Konstantin Malefev says that when Donald Trump sends Keith Kellogg, the special envoy regarding the Russia invasion of Ukraine, to Russia, according to Malefev, again, this Russian tycoon, Putin intends to tell Trump's envoy to go screw yourself. Now, a message like this coming from a Russian oligarch does not get out unless it is intentional. And Putin is clearly having Konstantin Malefev send this message and make it very clear that Russia is demanding major concessions by the United States, territorial and otherwise, or else Russia is not going to end its unlawful invasion. More on that in a moment. Now, we previously reported here on the Midas Touch Network, Vladimir Putin putting Donald Trump through all these other humiliation rituals. Donald Trump's team leaked to the Washington Post that there was a conversation with Vladimir Putin a few weeks back where Trump told Putin, you need to stop escalating the war in Ukraine or else. Vladimir Putin responded by telling Russian media no such conversation ever took place, and to say that Donald Trump said that is, quote, absolute pure fiction, is the message that Putin got out. Also, a top aide to Putin also put out a statement to the effect of it's time for Donald Trump and others close to Trump to pay their debts for being helped out in the election. Words to that effect went out on Russian media. Also, Russian media is gloating over Trump's cabinet picks. More on that came out in the past few days. Specifically, Russia is loving Donald Trump's selection of Kash Patel as FBI director. Let's just take a look at this. Julia Davis, who does an incredible job reporting on all things Russia and what's happening on Russia State TV. We wrote about this in our daily newsletter. Ron Filipkowski explains. Julia Davis, who brilliantly covers Russia media for the Daily Beast, says Russian state media is gushing over Trump's cabinet picks. Eugene Popov, co-host of Russia's 60 Minutes, called the nominee a radical dream team and was pleased that all of them hate Zelensky, that Trump has intentionally picked Zelensky haters. Putin's favorite host, Vladimir Solyov, says Trump's nominee to head the FBI, Kash Patel, is simply on fire. He's tremendous. Really, really good. That's what they're saying in Russia today. About 6 days ago, Julia Davis reported the following, and she goes through what they're saying on their shows. Here's what she said. She goes, meanwhile in Russia, Jackson Hinkle joined state TV host Vladimir Solyov. He's like their Sean Hannity during one of his military crowdfunding fundraisers for the Russian army. Now, people in Trump's cabinet have appeared with this guy, this Jackson Hinkle, on his podcast. He's a pro-Russia propagandist. Hinkle said that he is rooting for Russia to defeat Ukraine and gushed about Tulsi Gabbard and Mike Flynn. 2 days ago, Julia Davis posted the following. Meanwhile, in Russia, state TV propagandists scoffed at the appointment of Keith Kellogg as Trump's Ukraine envoy, describing him as an elderly, partially plucked hawk. In other words, they're mocking Donald Trump's selection of Keith Kellogg, calling him elderly and partially plucked as a hawk. And they basically praised the psychological warfare against Westerners and the United States. Julia Davis then wrote this article that we described, that I just described before, that Ron Filipkowski described in our newsletter at MidasPlus.com. The Kremlin celebrates Trump's cabinet picks is her article, and it talks about how all the state media is super happy with us, especially Tulsi Gabbard. And then you have them saying Trump's nominee and head of the FBI, Kash Patel, is simply on fire. Really, really, really good. I want to talk about this article in the Financial Times that I led with. Vladimir Putin to reject Donald Trump's opening peace offer, says Russian tycoon. Konstantin Malefev says Russian president to engage in talks only if they include broader conflicts. Donald Trump's pledge to end Russia's war in Ukraine is doomed to failure if the U.S. president-elect does not involve broader talks on Moscow's security concerns, an influential hardliner close to the Kremlin has warned. Again, this stuff does not get out in Russia unless Putin is saying this needs to get out. People don't speak for him like this there, or they end up, where. Also, Donald Trump's pledge, let's not move the benchmarks here. Trump said that he was going to end the war before he even took office. So he's already broke that pledge. And then he says he'll end the war on day one. Let's see if he ends that war on day one. And if he doesn't, let's see if the media is outraged the same way they are at Biden pardoning Hunter, or if they'll just say, well, things will get really complex. And I tend to think that the media will continue to cover for Donald Trump as they have before. Konstantin Malefev, a Russian tycoon who is subject to Western sanctions, told the Financial Times that Vladimir Putin was likely to reject a peace plan proposal by Trump's recently nominated special envoy to the conflict, Keith Kellogg, who, that's why I wanted to connect it to Julia Davis's other reporting, they call a partially plucked hawk. Now remember, Russian TV is also showing nudes of Melania over and over again. They're mocking Trump. They're mocking his wife. They're mocking him. Remember, Trump goes, oh, I'm going to be the protector of women. All right, well, Russia is showing nudes of your wife to mock you right now. I digress. It goes on to say that, and then it says he's going to go and reject the peace plans. This is what it says. I said this at the beginning of the video, but let's show you where it says it in the article. Kellogg comes to Moscow with his plan. We take it and then we tell him, screw yourself, because we don't like any of it. That'd be the whole negotiation, Malefev said in an interview at a luxury resort in Dubai. For the talks to be constructive, we need to talk not about the future of Ukraine, but the future of Europe and the world. In other words, a world order dominated by Russia. You see what they're saying here? Malefev said Trump could only end the conflict if he reversed Washington's decision on the use of advanced long-range weapons and removed Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky from office, then agreed to meet Putin and discuss all the issues of the global order at the highest level. The global order at the highest level. Do you see what Putin's plan is here? It's a world order with Russia on top, not NATO. And Putin knows how weak Donald Trump is. I've described this before as such. President Biden's policy is in the tradition of statesmen and statespeople, the Teddy Roosevelt philosophy. Walk soft, but carry a big stick. The big stick policy. We can talk soft. We don't have to be obnoxious and wave our hands and do all of accordion hands. No. We show our power when necessary, but otherwise we behave diplomatically. And we don't need to yell because we know that people who act like that, who act like Trump, are actually pretty weak people when they come down to it. Trump's policy, I've referred to it as the small stick policy, or the small you-know-what policy, where it's be obnoxious, but then when it comes down to it, fold. Trump is terrified of Putin. He's scared of Putin. We know this. Putin knows Donald Trump's pathology. Trump's scared of anybody who confronts him. He acts all tough, but when you confront him one-on-one, he backs down. He's scared. He's a terrified individual at his core. So look at what they're saying right now. They're saying, and this is Putin leaking this through this oligarch to get this message out to Trump. We're not going to give you a victory on day one if that's what you think. You have to talk about a new world order with Russia as its leader. He warned that the world is on the brink of nuclear war after Kyiv fired US and UK-made long-range missiles into Russian territory, and Putin responded by firing an experimental nuclear-capable ballistic missile. at Ukraine. So also they know that Trump is terrified of the threat of nuclear war, and that will make Trump terrified. Do you realize the psychological tactics they're using here in this article? And why do you think they're giving this to the Financial Times and not say Wall Street Journal or New York Times or Fox? Because they know that this is being read by Trump's diplomatic people who are not so diplomatic, who are relaying these messages to terrify him. That's why they're doing this strategy. It goes on to say in the article, Malefiev, however, argued that if the U.S. did not agree to roll back its support of Ukraine, Russia could fire a tactical nuclear weapon. There will be a radiation zone nobody will ever go into our lifetime, and the war will be over. He said Moscow would only see it as a lasting condition for peace if Trump was willing to discuss other global flashpoints, including the wars in the Middle East and Russia's burgeoning alliance with China, and U.S. acknowledgement that Ukraine is part of the Kremlin's core interest. You see the tactics there? They understand at a deep level Trump's pathology. They're mocking his wife. They're putting Trump through humiliation rituals. Putin last week talked about Trump not being safe, talking about the threat of nuclear weapons. And then he goes on to talk about in this article too, look, Trump's a grandfather. They call him old, basically. They go, Trump's a grandfather. He wants a legacy, and so does Putin. They're playing to all the touch points right now of his pathology. They know. Why am I bringing this up to you? I want you to understand the game that's being played. And Biden didn't play that game. Biden talked soft, carried a big stick, but immediately, Sleepy Joe, must be a Sleepy Joe. That's how statesmen behave. That's how statespeople behave. Go crazy. So I'll keep you posted, but I want you to see how this diplomacy is actually happening, or the lack thereof, how the threats are happening in real time. I'm not going to sensationalize it like corporate media. I just want to explain to you the subtleties of this language, or the not so subtleties, and how these messages are being sent. And Trump's response was, oh, we're going to issue 100% sanctions on BRICS nations. Oh, social media, 100% sanction on BRICS. Russia would like nothing more than 100% sanctions on BRICS, because Russia's already excluded from doing business with the United States. And if you sanction Brazil, India, South Africa, and other BRICS nations, they're just going to move China. They're just going to move closer to Russia. That's Russia's whole proposition of BRICS is they're going to sanction and tariff you and do all of these things and tariff you 100%. Anyway, hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million.
Real quick, Meta just changed their algorithm to suppress political content. Please follow our Instagram @MidasTouch right now as we head towards 400,000 followers so you don't miss a beat.